Hi, everyone. So, the President of the United States, if you can call him that, the village idiot Donald Trump, has a new acting director of national intelligence. That new acting director of national intelligence's name is Bill Pulte. Bill Pulte is replacing Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard was the former acting director of national intelligence. Tulsi Gabbard was became a Trump sycophant later on in her career. She was actually a sane, rational, normal Democratic congresswoman, I believe from the state of Hawaii for almost a decade. And she actually had very good, strong, principled positions on a lot of issues forever. And then I don't know what happened, but she became nuts. Nuts by choice, certainly not by circumstance. I mean, she's not like Donald Trump and the goofballs around him. She's not Looney Tunes. I don't, maybe ambition, maybe access to power. Maybe she figured this was, her political career wasn't going anywhere after she left the House of Representatives. She ran for president in 2020. She didn't make it very far in the primaries. Maybe that was where the issue was, and this is the closest she thought she would ever get, whatever the reason was. Tulsi Gabbard opted to take the job or accept the job from Trump and stand up for Trump, believe in Trump, and to become all things Trump, to the point where just before she was fired or left, I mean, she did resign because her husband, she had announced, unfortunately, that her husband has a very rare form of cancer and she wants to be with him through that process. And I'm never going to, certainly, no matter which side of the political spectrum anyone is on, I'm always going to certainly give them the benefit of the doubt or give them no doubt on a comment like that, a situation like that, because it's horrific. And I hope he's well, and I hope they get through that. And I hope for all the damage that Tulsi did as DNI director, I don't wish ill on her or her husband. But irrespective, there was plenty of ample reporting prior to that she was on her way out the door. The village idiot Donald Trump clearly wasn't happy with the fact that she and her, and even more so, the guy directly under her, the director of counterterrorism, I don't remember exactly what his name is, Joe Kent, who was a big Trump supporter for forever, where he resigned several months before her, a couple months before her, because of his opposition to the war in Iran. So, irrespective, this isn't about Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi is out, I think, as of today. That remains to be seen. But Bill Pulte is in. And Bill Pulte strikes me as whatever Tulsi Gabbard was not, which was a true Trumpian lunatic, which was somebody who was truly unfit for the job, truly incompetent, 100% crazy. It seems like Bill Pulte is all of that and more. And it seems like he is hellbent to getting in, starting the job as quickly as he possibly can, and wreaking havoc on the Department of National Intelligence as Director of National Intelligence, which oversees 18 intelligence agencies or something like that. And to use those agencies against the perceived enemies of the village idiot Donald Trump, and to use that agency somehow to prove for the village idiot Donald Trump that he won the 2020 election. There's some really good reporting from CNN today that we're going to get into about this. But without further ado, let me just, since we are in a live stream right now, we're not in a recorded episode, I just want to bring up the live streams in Instagram, in YouTube, Twitch, and Substack so I can see the actual live. So just bear with me for a moment. Okay, and let's see. Let me bring up the YouTube. It'll take just a moment. Which was somebody. Okay, YouTube is up. And last but not least, for the good people at Substack, let's bring up this stream. Okay, YouTube is up. And last but not least, okay, so we're up on all platforms now. So we're going to work off of this reporting from CNN today in today's live. So CNN reports well, it was actually yesterday, but CNN reports yesterday that Trump's new acting intel chief, Bill Pulte, arrives early and he eyes firing hundreds. Let me just read some of the reporting to you and then we'll kind of break it down, okay? The village idiot President Donald Trump, CNN is not saying that, I am. Village idiot President Trump's pick for acting director of national intelligence. Now, I need to make it clear before we even go any further that the director of national intelligence is a Senate confirmed position, right? So the idiot, as soon as, well, actually a couple weeks after Gabbard announced her resignation, the village idiot came and announced that he was appointing Bill Pulte as the acting DNI chief. There's a finite amount of time that Pulte can be in this position before the imbecile has to nominate someone as to be the confirmed DNI chief. Senate Republican senators have to confirm whoever that is, right? Confirmation hearings where the idiot had announced someone. I can't remember the guy's name. We'll read about it in this article. Had announced someone who he wanted to be the DNI chief, the permanent chief, but just a couple days ago he pulled he ordered the guy to hold off, to pull away from his Senate confirmation hearings temporarily. And at the time, the excuse for that was that he wanted Republicans to hyper-focus on passing the Save America Act, which is basically the Voter Suppression Act, which is never going to make its way through the Senate anyway. But he wanted them to focus on that, and then he'll come back and later on kind of deal with Senate confirmation of his supposedly preferred candidate. But that's I think it's not that. I think his preferred candidate is Bill Pulte. I think because Pulte is such an ass kisser, such a Trumpian sycophant, and because Pulte is a lunatic, and I think and Pulte is absolutely focused on will be focused on using all of U.S. intelligence agencies, with the exception of the CIA, because that's managed by John Radcliffe. He's the CIA director, but he's another nut, and it's another conversation for another day. But Pulte, I imagine, is going to turn all of these agencies on us. They're not going to be necessarily looking for terrorists and focusing on counterterrorism and things like that. They're going to be focusing on influencers like myself, other voices that they want stifled because they make Trump look bad. And we also consistently expose all kinds of problems, lies and corruption in the administration. Certainly I imagine Pulte would happily focus on, in addition to creators, would also focus on pretend Antifa as an organization. We've already seen the Department of Justice going after and arresting protesters who they now claim are members of this supposedly organized group called Antifa that is supposed to be a domestic terrorist organization, and we all know that's not a real thing, right? That there is no organized Antifa, and but they're trying to create that and pretend that it exists, and I'm sure Pulte is eager to be a part of that, and it's to turn our U.S. Spy agencies against American citizens. There's no question about it. They're going to go after. I'm certain he's going to do everything he can to go after journalists, the journalists that are actively looking into and challenging the Trump administration. So the idiot does not want anybody else in this position as director of national intelligence. The idiot, Donald Trump, wants this clown, Pulte, in this position. But because he's so unpopular now, because the war in Iran was such an unmitigated disaster, because the economy is in such a state of shambles, with the exception of the stock market, because Donald Trump's polling across the board is his polling now is worse than Biden's on Biden's worst day, and that's pretty bad. And he's not even 2 years into his second administration yet. Because he's doing so badly, as we've talked about in other episodes, chicken shit GOP senators are finally starting to find a spine, right? They're finally starting to find a modicum of courage to stand up to the village idiot Donald Trump. And because of that, it's at least a handful of them who normally wouldn't have had the courage to do so have basically said that it's unlikely, almost impossible, that they're going to find a way to confirm this idiot. And if you get 5 or 6 Republicans who will not vote to confirm Pulte, even though it's a simple majority vote, then Pulte will not be confirmed. And that's why the idiot, I think that's why the idiot wants Pulte in place as long as he can, because Pulte can do a lot of damage as long as he is there. Anyway, it's enough of my pontificating. Let's read a little bit. The sources say Pulte is eyeing to cut hundreds of jobs at the Office of Director of National Intelligence. Pulte's ongoing ODNI appearance at the ODNI, that's the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. He wasn't expected to show up. He wasn't supposed to start till the end of the month minimum. On Thursday, caught staff off guard, including the outgoing director, Tulsi Gabbard, who was given a brief heads up on the visit. The village idiot Donald Trump himself said that Pulte, now again, I'm saying the village idiot, CNN isn't, that Pulte, who is a Trump loyalist with no intelligence experience, would start his job on Friday. So this idiot he's very eager to get in there, and he's going to start next Friday. We'll see. Or was it this Friday? Because let me see when this article came out. It was updated 20 hours ago. So, and it doesn't show the original date of publication. So Pulte may be in the job already. Pulte may be in the position already. So I'm not quite sure of that. Let's continue. Pulte met with lawyers and staffers during his visit. The sources told CNN. Now, the other thing about Pulte that I think it's important to understand if you're not following this all the time is Pulte's background. Before he spent the last significant portion of the Trump administration overseeing the agency. I can't think of the name of it right now, but it was a massive agency, multi-trillion dollar agency that manages Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, the federal mortgage overseers, and you could have made an argument, but it was a stretch that at least he was moderately qualified for that job. Pulte is the son or the grandson of if you I don't know how to explain this. The family is they're developers. They build homes. The Pulte family. If you live in an area where you have, which are all over the country, where there are Pulte developments, you would see the name. This is a Pulte community. It's a very famous name in the home building community, right? It's not a. I don't think it's a Fortune 500 company. I don't think it's a publicly traded company, but it's a pretty significant family business that's been around for generations. Now, I don't know if Pulte is just is your typical nepo baby who is thoroughly incompetent. That is just that was just sort of placed into this position by grandpa and daddy, and is or if he's just part of a family business and he was competent in it. The reason I would lean to think that he was an incompetent nepo baby who has fallen into the family trust and probably doesn't run the family business because they know he's the family dipshit. The reason I would assume that is because of his proximity to Trump. Number one, Trump likes that type of person, and also because he's crazy. There's no question in my mind about his emotional fitness. Unlike Donald Trump, we don't know the details. I mean, I don't know if he's suffering from mental illness like malignant narcissism. We don't know. I mean, he's too young to be suffering from frontotemporal dementia, something that the village idiot clearly has. But there's something very, very off. His zeal, his thrill, his zeal, his excitement to be an election denier, his enthusiasm about the corruption in the Trump administration, that suggests to me, as we've seen with so many different cabinet members, that some, not that Pulte's a cabinet member, well, he is now, but suggests to me that something is off. And based on that, although it may be unfair, I kind of think that that he's probably the doofus of the family, and he's he probably just kind of exists there in the corporate structure just because he has to, but they don't really trust him to do anything. So now you take a character like that, and again, I don't know if this is really true. I'm just thinking this. I'm just making this up. So take it with a grain of salt, right? But you take a character like that, who certainly is a creep and a sycophant and a Trumpian cult member. I mean, those things I'm quite certain. And then you place him in this very important position, overseeing Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and everything else that's associated with an agency of that magnitude, right? And he's suddenly in charge of it. And there hasn't been a lot of reporting about this because it hasn't been hot news. I mean, we may be feeling the effects of it in the housing market, but the media hasn't covered him. Even independent media hasn't really covered Pulte beyond the point that he's a lunatic, and beyond the point that it seemed like the hyper-focus of his job in that position was to make up, create fake charges about mortgage fraud against Trump's perceived enemies, Letitia James, James Comey, John Bolton. These are all people that had that Pulte had claimed that he found instances where they lied about the value of a mortgage or the value of a home. So I don't know if they could sell the home for more money, or they could get a better tax deal on local tax deal on their home, or whatever. But he claimed that he found mortgage fraud for all of these people that were associated, that the village idiot Donald Trump hated in the past, and referred them over to the Department of Justice. The Department of Justice attempted to prosecute each of them for those reasons, and all those prosecutions failed miserably. They never even went to trial. They never really went past indictment, except for John Bolton, but that's who recently accepted a plea deal with the Department of Justice. But that was for a second case. That was a completely unrelated case to the mortgage fraud case. That was for classified documents. Now, the unintended comedy with that is both of these crimes are crimes that Donald Trump himself committed. We know we had ample, after his tax returns were released, during his first administration, we had ample proof that he always inflated the value of his properties to get bigger loans from banks like Deutsche Bank and everything else, which is a federal crime. And then he deflated the value of his properties over and over again to not be able to pay taxes, or not have to pay taxes on those properties. So that was a crime that Trump committed. And of course, we know in Florida, in the classified documents case, that he has, in essence, stole documents from the White House before he left, kept them. The National Archives asked for over a year, asked for those documents to be returned. He refused to return them. He consistently lied about having them. His lawyers, Alina Habba and Lindsay Halligan, lied over and over and over again about it. And eventually the FBI had to raid Mar-a-Lago, where they found the documents basically in a bathroom in Mar-a-Lago, which anybody would have had access to. And he still claimed that, he was innocent. But because of Judge Eileen Cannon, who was the judge handling that case, who was a Trump appointee, corrupted nut job, she eventually found a way to drop that case. But the point that I'm making is that Trump committed both of the crimes that the crime that John Bolton was eventually took a plea deal on, and the job that the crime that Bill Pulte alleged that he found when he was in a position to find this stuff, and he referred over to the Department of Justice. Irrespective, that was Pulte's main job. So there's nothing within. You take out my criticism of him being an incompetent nepo baby that has no idea what he's doing. That's not even running the family business. That's just like the family goofball that they just have to keep on the payroll because he shares the same name with his father and his grandfather. And you just take that out. Maybe I'm completely wrong about that. Take out the fact that he was completely incompetent and unqualified for the job that he had in the government for the Village Idiot, and the most that he did within that job was lay off a bunch of people, make the agency completely inefficient and understaffed, and look for pretend crimes to be able to charge Donald Trump's enemies with them. Sorry, guys, my phone is just ringing. So take that out. Take those two things out of consideration for a moment, right? What on earth in that pedigree? Like, what on earth in that resume would even remotely qualify this guy to be the director of national intelligence? What law enforcement experience does he have? What counterterrorism experience does he have? What experience does he have running an agency that is responsible for keeping America safe? I mean, even Kash Patel, the FBI director, who is completely unfit, unqualified, batshit crazy, incompetent, keeps tripping over his own feet in this job when he's not drunk and when he's not running around in the FBI private plane to take his girlfriend places, right? At least you can make an argument that during the first Trump administration, he had some job in law enforcement, sort of, kind of, not really. And he may not have known what the hell he was doing in there, and he was completely incompetent, but at least he was in it for 4 years, right? He claims he has 16 or 18 or 20 years or something, but at least he was something. And he shouldn't have had the job, right? So now now you take that a step further, and you've got, it's bad enough that we have Linda McMahon as the Secretary of Education, who was, the wrestling lady, right? Her and her husband ran the WWF, which became the WWE and whatever. And, she was a wealthy socialite who happened to be on the board of some school districts or whatever. And the idiot made her Secretary of Education, and that's catastrophic. And she's unqualified for it, but it wasn't national security, right? It wasn't keeping America safe. It wasn't helping us not have another 9/11, right? That's a different level of stuff. Bill Pulte is now that guy. This guy is now that guy, at least for a while, as the acting director of national intelligence. So at least for a while, this raging Trumpian sycophantic whack job is in charge of the Office of National Intelligence. And that is it's unthinkable. It's not just unprecedented, it's unthinkable. And when I considered what I might put on my doomsday bingo card, right? When I knew as soon as the imbecile was elected for a second time of the plethora of things that could be horrible. I opted, I chose not to consciously think about the director of national intelligence, about that job, because it was just too horrible to think about. And in some weird way, I was slightly relieved when it became Tulsi Gabbard, because at least, she may pretend to be crazy and stupid, but she's not really crazy and stupid, right? And she obviously had some red lines, which is one of the reasons why she probably left, right? So, and at least she was qualified somewhat. But this, anyway, if you're just joining us, I've been sort of rambling on about Bill Pulte being the director of national intelligence, and we're reading through a CNN report about how he couldn't wait to start the job. He was so eager to get in there and start the job. He was so enthusiastic and excited to get in there and start the job. And I just sort of covered a lot of other awful stuff about him. But let's get back to the reporting now. I'd like to keep myself honest with there's my opinion, and then there's the actual real reporting. So let's keep going. In his only briefing, in his only other briefing with the Office of Director of National Intelligence last week, Pulte asked if he could bring the president's daily brief to his house. to his house. This is something this is a top secret classified document. He wants to bring it home, raising alarm bells among intelligence officials, according to the sources, one of the sources. That briefing is a highly classified set of intelligence on key national security matters of the day. Now, think about this. This is the president's daily brief. This is what they show the Village Idiot every single day. This is the president's daily brief. They show this to the Village Idiot 7 days a week. I'm sorry, my son just opened my door up. So this is how the idiot makes decisions, say about things like the Iran war, say about threats to the homeland, say, this is how he makes decisions about serious issues. I'm sorry, guys, there's just some noise in the background because my wife and my son just walked in, and it sounds like the dog is jumping all over the place. So if you're hearing some background noise, that's just because it just suddenly got and we have some company over too. So that's why it suddenly got noisy in the background. So that's the president's daily briefing, right? So imagine, we already know that the president is incapable of processing, seeing, reading, understanding the daily briefing. There was adequate reporting during the first Trump administration that he insisted that the daily briefers stop bringing him written documents, but bring him pictures, photos, things that he could, things that he could possibly wrap his limited brain around, right? Now we know his brain is even further addled. We know that he's suffering from frontotemporal dementia. We know that he's suffering from malignant narcissism. We know that he's not there. We know that he doesn't understand when somebody talks to him, let alone anything he reads. We know that when he's not being given accolades and told how wonderful he is, that it's impossible for him to pay attention. We know that he can't stay awake during the day when he's sitting down. So we know all that stuff. And we also know that, or we can assume, I think, correctly, that when he was getting his briefings, whether it was about the Iran war or pretend Antifa, domestic terrorist attacks, or about how wonderfully successful the $14.2 million renovation in the White House reflecting pool, or the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool has been, even though it's toxic colored. It's like the color of a zombie movie, apocalyptic green toxic lake with blue pieces of paint floating around in it now, or sinking to the bottom. We know when he's getting briefings about that, they're lying to him. They're just telling him what he wants to hear, what makes them feel good about themselves, and what will afford them an opportunity to have curry his favor, keep their jobs, and get all sorts of corrupt opportunities, lucrative usually, from him, and also so they can hold on to power. So we know that's already happening. But now this idiot clearly doesn't like Tulsi Gabbard's version of the daily briefings, which were probably ass-kissing, absurd, but at least maybe had some truth to it. So this doofus, he's so done, such a dunce, and he's so unaware of what his basic requirements are in his job, that he wants to take it home. Let me take it home. I don't want to read it here in the office. I don't like to be in the office. It means I have to. I'm used to being back at the Pulte Company, where I have an office. It's beautiful. I go in once a month. Everybody says, "Hello, Mr. Pulte. You're so good, Mr. Pulte. Thank you, Mr. Pulte." And I take my work home, and they give him pretend work to make him happy and make him feel like a real boy, like he's really part of the company. And he kind of comes and goes, and he probably collects a multi-million-dollar salary every year. And, he's a trust fund baby, and so I'm sure he's very well taken care of. That's what he used to, right? But now, it's like, oh, I can't sit here in this building, this government building, in an office or a skiff, and read. You expect me to sit here and read a security briefing here? I want to do it in my bed. I want to do it in my jacuzzi. I want to go home and, read it, smoke a cigar, and I want to be a real man. Put my feet up and, maybe have my mistress massage them while I read this and I try to figure out how to reorganize it so that the president will get what he wants. So we'll figure out how to interfere with the 2026 midterms, and I can figure out how to prove to the whole world that Donald and I are right, that he did indeed win the 2020 election. But irrespective of the fact that this is top secret and classified, and this idiot could bring it home, and the house cleaners, when they come in, could just pick it up and read it and probably show it to his wife and his mistress and his kids and anybody in the family member. Look, guys, I have top secret information. How cool am I? Pulte also asked about his level of security clearance, whether it was top secret, if he had access to a government plane. That we're going to go on later in this article where Pulte talks about how, where he was like obsessing about access to that plane. He wanted access to that plane. Because Kash Patel has had the director of the FBI, we've seen all the reporting about that. He's had so much fun on his plane. Even though the briefing was meant to explain the core mission of the ODNI to Pulte, CNN previously reported that before Pulte was announced to lead the U.S. intelligence community, he did not have a security clearance, granting him access to highly classified information, meaning he lacked what has long been considered a basic prerequisite for the job. So this idiot doesn't even have basic clearance to lead the agency, and he's already been given access to the president's daily briefings, and he wants to take them home. Process that, because I don't know how to. Another source familiar told CNN that Pulte has repeatedly inquired about his schedule and whether he gets his own government plane, appearing almost overly fixated on his ability to travel between D.C., Florida, and Chicago. He's got to be able... Guys, look, it's a lot of work to do nothing. It's a lot of work to take a government, for a very wealthy man who probably never did an ounce of work in his life, who is a psychopathic Trumpian sycophant, to... have to show up for work at all, right? And he needs a break. Just like the idiot needs to go play golf all the time. Pulte's going to need a break. He's got to go back and get at his accolades at probably his lovely mansion in Florida and his massive brownstone. I don't know if he has these, but I'm assuming in Chicago. He probably needs that. He needs a private, a personal government jet, to be able to do that, because he's got to be comfy, right? Can't be uncomfortable when he does that. Pulte had also asked for a protective security detail even before starting the job, according to the first source. So he's, Kash Patel, his crazy security detail makes him feel important. Hey, Gail, how are you? Irish Aggie, yes, it's really happening. It's really happening. But he wants his own, because they feel these are such inadequate men. Right? Kash Patel, Bill Pulte. They feel so important when they have a security detail around them, right? They're such losers. They're such inadequate, insecure, again, creeps who never earned anything in their lives but had everything given to them. So they need to feel good about themselves, right? They need to feel important. So I'm sure a security detail makes them feel like men. There is concern from Democrats and some Republicans on Capitol. The episodes, which have not previously been reported, indicate that Pulte feels empowered to begin his tenure as spy chief in an aggressive fashion. Trump has already given him a mandate to further shrink the intelligence community and pursue, and this is, I think, the key takeaway from this article, and pursue the president's false claims of election fraud. And that's what he wants Bill Pulte to do. That's what he needs Bill Pulte to do. That is going to be Pulte's entire focus. That and how to circumvent the 2026 midterms. That will be Pulte's primary responsibility. Period. End of story. I don't think he will do anything else. And you got to take that in for a minute, because you're going to have the director of national security hyper focused on proving that Donald Trump won the 2020 election and trying to find ways to circumvent the inevitable outcome of the 2026 midterm elections so that Republicans win. That will be Pulte's job, period. And he's going to have the full power of the nation's spy agencies, internal spy agency. And they're going to turn those. They're going to turn those. He's going to turn those. He's going to those tools on American citizens. And this is one that's scary because we're all going to be affected in some capacity. I fully expect as a content creator, there's going to be some sort of effort to watch me and everybody else who's doing this as a pro-democracy, because we are growing exponentially by leaps and bounds, and we're a direct threat to the administration right now. No question about it. I fully expect. I look and look if you doubt that Pulte's going to do this, and you wonder of why the plethora of reasons why Tulsi Gabbard probably is gone, in addition to the serious situation with her husband's cancer diagnosis, look at what she did. There was an FBI raid on a election office in Georgia. Was it in Atlanta? I don't remember exactly where it was, but there was an FBI raid on it where they were following up on Kash Patel was following up on the laughable bullshit that remember Donald really desperately wanted those 11,000 votes, and he tried to shake down Brad Raffensperger. Yeah, he tried to shake down Brad Raffensperger, the Secretary of State in Georgia. And we all heard him do it, and that was a crime. That was a crime. That was a crime, right? Find me 11,000 votes. You can just find them, Brad. You're going to do it. It's going to be fantastic. Remember that? Well, so that's got to be where with Trump's his malignant narcissism, his need to win, his need for revenge. He needs to get revenge. He needs to start there, right? He needs to start his election to prove that he won the 2020 election in the place where he tried to force it to happen in the first place, right? His belief was that if he could get Georgia to shift and get Raffensperger to find him 11,000 magical votes, then other red states would just follow and say, fuck democracy, fuck the Constitution, we're just going to do it, right? Remember that, right? Well, that's exactly, so it makes sense that a maniac like Donald Trump would have to, would order his FBI to start there. So they raided this election office. They stole the ballots, right? They stole 700 boxes, I think, of ballots. Now, how does that apply to this? Well, Tulsi Gabbard was there. She just happened to be there. And she said, I just happened to be in the area, so and I kind of heard about it, so I figured I'd stop by. Why? Why would you stop by? Why would the director of national intelligence stop by of an illegal FBI raid on an office where they were going to steal ballots to try to fake prove that Georgia actually was won by the village idiot Donald Trump? Why would she just happen to be there? And there was a lot of speculation. I don't think it's even speculation. It's obvious. There was a lot of concern that she was involved, that the idiot was trying to involve the director of national intelligence to try to help prove that the 2020 election was stolen. And the director of national intelligence could have all sorts of angles to go through. One of the biggest ones would be foreign interference, right? They could have said there was, Tulsi Gabbard could have said it was the Chinese or it was the Russians or it was Antifa, coordinating with whoever he's mad at, whatever country he's mad at. Right now, he's mad at the Italians because the prime minister of Italy called him out. Basically said he was crazy, 1 or 2 days ago, that he lied, and he lies incessantly about wanting to take a picture with her wanting to take a picture with him, right? So he's mad at Italy. So maybe they were in Italy. I could just see him sitting down with psychopath Bill Pulte today. I'm going to tell you something. I know there's a lot of votes that came from Italy. The Italians, she was working Maloney. I call her Maloney. I call her Baloney Maloney. Baloney Maloney, she was working with them. She was working with Antifa. And they changed the vote. It was horrible. Raffensperger was in on it. I saw Raffensperger. He did it with them. It was terrible. And then all you need to do is just to make shit up, right? And get the director of national intelligence to make this up and put the full weight of our intelligence agencies behind this bullshit and try to make it real. And it won't be. We're all going to know it's bullshit. It's not going to work. But maybe Gabbard wouldn't do it. Maybe there was a red line where she was like, She sort of does. She dipped her toe into the pool of absolute authoritarian corruption, idiotic authoritarian corruption because they're so stupid. And maybe she said it's too much. Because maybe there's still a conscience in there. It's not going to be too much for this psychopath Bill Pulte. And that's concerning. I'm going to counterbalance this for a minute. I'm going to, check out that CNN article if you want to read more of the details. I'm going to wrap the live in just a moment. But I want to counterbalance it with a little bit of positivity. Just a little bit, because I don't want to leave you thinking like they're going to get us. This is going to work. They're going to win. I want to counterbalance all that because this is dark shit, right? And if Trump was Putin, I would be worried. If Trump was Kim Jong-un, I would be worried, right? If Trump was Saddam Hussein, I would be worried. But Trump's an idiot. He's surrounded by idiots. Bill Pulte, I am sure, is another idiot, right? Everything these idiots do is a disaster. Everything. They can't hide anything. They trip over themselves. They're such profound dunces, and they are basically talentless, incapable, spoiled brats. They're all a bunch of adult toddlers who never had to work a day in their lives, who never had to be creative a day in their lives, who never had to be strategic, who just, mommy and daddy just paid their way out of trouble over and over again. And again, they're the dunces of the family that, were set up by someone, mom, dad, grandpa, grandma, to just, nobody ever expected these half-wits to be in power. And if the no-wit in the White House wouldn't have made it there, none of these other buffoons would have the job. So look at this Bill Pulte thing with concern, and we'll be watching it closely because they are going to try to genuinely harm people, right? But also remember that they're just such imbeciles. And thankfully, with the exception of the Supreme Court, the lower courts have all held up. They're intolerant of stupidity. And even the Supreme Court, in some instances, sometimes 7 justices are like, what the fuck? Even we can't go this far. Alito and Clarence Thomas, forget them. But sometimes, there's even a point with them where it's like, all right, just stop the madness. Come on, it's enough. So I don't want to leave this episode as if it's a dark day with Bill Pulte coming in, where the authoritarian wet dream that Donald Trump always had is suddenly going to come to fruition. It isn't, because they're all so remarkably stupid and incompetent. But it is going to be inconvenient, and it is going to be corrupt, and it is going to be ugly. But remember, and I'll leave you with this, it's also going to be comical. And that's what we're here to do. We're here to make fun of it, even while we talk about it. And I think I'm going to wrap the live there, guys. I hope you guys have a good rest of this Saturday. If you're with us on Twitch now, please make sure you like and follow. I really need to start building a community on Twitch, and I would love for you to be the first couple who are here. If you're with us on YouTube or Substack, please make sure to like and subscribe. And if you're on Substack and it is comfortable for you and this is valuable enough for you, please consider upgrading or starting out with a paid subscription. For the next month, I have a subscription sale. It's a get to 100 subscribers sale. So month-to-month subscriptions are 20% off. So I think instead of like $5 a month, it's $4 a month. Look, give it to Midas Touch first. They're developing news. They're providing you news that you need. Give it all to your favorite charities first. They need it next. Give it all to your pro-democracy candidates next, because we need to elect them more than, Mitch needs to make a living and build the community. But if there's anything left after that you're comfortable with, please consider a paid subscription. Either way, though, thank you for being here. I love you guys. 1 minute at a time, 1 hour at a time, 1 day at a time, one live at a time. I'll see you guys soon. Have a good rest of the weekend, and watch out for me on your vertical socials: Instagram, YouTube, Shorts, Facebook. I'll be posting all throughout the week on the weekend on those, and I hope to have an article for you here on Substack tomorrow as well. Not 100% sure on that, but I'm angling to wrap one up. I just have to end the lives one at a time. So Twitch, I'm going to let you guys go first. Thank you for being here. I'll see you soon. And Twitch has left the building.